let's talk about the 5000 and 6000 series. They both use the gravity dispense tube system, and this is some technology that's been around for over 20 years and is still relevant today.
Absolutely. Actually, it's one of FETCO's first patents. The dispense tube system is very unique because it does not use a dispense valve as is common in most brewing equipment. So there's no solenoid valve that opens and allows the water out. The way the dispense tube system works is the tube sits above the level of the water inside the tank. There's actually a bushing around here that prevents it from leaking. And when you pull down on the handle, this handle here, you pull the handle underneath the level of the water and the water begins to flow. And then it comes out the spray head, which is our spray cutter and flow disc assembly, and it disperses the water over the top of the grounds. So the reason for this whole design ultimately was to prevent scale buildup, which is always a problem with solenoid valves because it just inherently collects scale. Whereas this, because water drains out of the system every single time, scale won't build up inside of it.
Now you just mentioned the spray cutter. When we were talking about the extractor line, we were obviously speaking about the CSD. This line of Brewers actually uses a spray cutter, which is very different than the cascaded spray cutter.
Yes, that's very true. Again, this is one of our first little items that we put into our original Brewers. The spray cutter basically, it just has multiple holes in it, and it basically does what it says. It cuts the water into different streams, and it spreads that water over the top of the grounds. And while it did a really good job, still does a very good job for what it is, the CSD was actually a very large improvement on that. And the other thing that is required for this is what's called a flow disc, which just meters down the water through the hole here and makes sure that a certain amount of water flows through all the time.
For more information on the 5000 and 6000 specs, please visit our website, click on Equipment, click on Coffee Brewers, and there you'll be able to access user's guides for all of the 5000 and 6000 series. So when we're talking about the 5000 and 6000 series, they come with, or they work with, our TPD line of dispensers. So we're going to briefly talk about our TPD line.
Okay, the TPDs, they come in two different sizes, 3 gallon and 1.5 gallon. So you got your TPD 30 and your TPD 15. And what we're looking at here for under the 61H is actually a 3 gallon dispenser. It's a very sturdy dispenser. It's the original thermal dispenser that we came up with over 15 years ago, probably pushing almost 20 actually. So ultimately, this dispenser was really the first generation. And it's got a nice sight gauge tube on the front that has graduations on the sight gauge guard, sight gauge tube. It has a nice funnel design that actually directs the coffee down to the bottom of the dispenser, just like all of our dispensers. And it also has a twist lock cover assembly that goes on top that locks it down and seals the heat in. So it's a really nice dispenser, virtually indestructible.
And so with our 5000 series, it can be used with the TPD 15, but it also can be used with the L3D 15 as well.
And the LD 15.
And the LS 15.
Yes, exactly. So you do have a lot more flexibility with the 5000 series brewer. It gives us the ability to kind of mix and match based on what your use is going to be. If you want a sight gauge tube, you don't want a sight gauge tube, whatever the case may be, it gives us that nice flexibility.
With either one of these, can you brew a half batch?
Yes, you can, as long as it's set up for it. And actually, right now, standard, the Brewers will be coming with the half batch switches and half batch timers. But if you bought one previous to this, or you're buying a used one, sometimes they don't have the half batch switches on them, or even the half batch timer in them. But for anything new that goes out of the factory, we do have the switches in place with the timers active for being able to do half batches.
So you spoke about timing. How do you adjust time and temperature?
Well, it's a little bit more difficult on the handle-operated brewers than on our extractors. You do have to open up the top of the brewer. On our single brewer for the 51s, it's actually on the inside panel here. But you would typically open the top of the brewer, and you have to find your thermostat, and there is a knob with a digital display, so you can adjust that. And then there is your timers for, one for each side. and it does have 6 dials on it. And 3 dials are for the full batch and 3 are for the half batch. And you just have to adjust each one based on the segment of time that you want to adjust.
Now you're just talking about the top of the brewers. Is it okay to store filter boxes, brew baskets up here?
No, not really, and there's a few reasons for that actually. One, if you're storing filters up here, you're potentially blocking the vents, which is going to make the brewer ultimately overheat, which is not good. And that's true of any brewer that you're actually working with. You don't want to put things on top. If you're putting brew baskets up here, same thing. You also have the fact that with the filters, if you put them up there, you're degrading the paper. So you're actually taking that filter and you're making it into a less effective filter. And you don't want to do that. And if you leave them out of the box and you put them up here, they actually start to unfold. And then what happens when you put them inside the basket and you go to brew, they fall in. And that's going to create a problem with coffee grounds coming out as well.
Because of heat and moisture up on top.
Absolutely. Actually, as soon as a filter is exposed to air, it starts absorbing moisture. If the room is humid, it's just sucking in all that moisture. So you want to keep them in the plastic that they come in.